Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. So appreciate you and your willingness to serve and your many years of experience. You mentioned your commitment to implementing the safety certification program, which some of it has been implemented, but there's more to do. And I guess I would just say as a summation that the world of aviation since you left the FAA has changed significantly. You mentioned the 737 MAX crashes, the COVID pandemic, how we kept airlines moving during that time period. Recently, the NOTAM system outages, near misses, things of that nature. What the FAA needs to do, I think, are even greater challenges since when you were there before. So I appreciate you saying you wanted to fully implement the law, so thank you. Thank you for that. What are your strategies for building a resilient safety culture at the FAA? And what do you think it takes at this point in time to have that safety culture? I just want to mention we were able to implement the Samiastumo Air Grant Program, and I see it already paying dividends on Capitol Hill and at agencies because we have the smartest technology people here helping on the very technical details of aviation. The underlying AXA bill has the integrated project team. Sometimes around here we call them the graybeards. While I'm anxious to see how the graybeards assess technology, as you mentioned in your statement, that may not be disclosed by a manufacturer, and yet you have to understand the huge technology change that is happening. I mean, I wonder at some time if we shouldn't be looking at a CTO. In some ways, NASA is our CTO, but maybe on the implementation of things as we look at the NOTAM outage and other things, I mean, maybe in addition to the forward thinking that NASA does for the agency, maybe a CTO or these integrated project team leaders are a key to our future. But if you could talk about what it is that you think we need to build in that intersection of changes of technology and safety.
Thank you, Senator Cantwell. It's a great question. I think there are a number of aspects to this. We need to build a strong leadership team, make sure we have the right people in the right positions and make sure they're permanent. And we need a strong bench. So I think focusing on making sure we have the expertise in the organization is going to be key. Safety culture doesn't create itself, and I think you have to constantly emphasize that it is our first mission above all else, and everything has to be focused on that. We have to hold the line on pressure to reduce standards and make sure we're keeping this system as safe as possible. The technology issue is a very interesting one. There are a lot of new technologies coming into the agency that you can't prove out through flight testing necessarily. Software is a good example of that. New technologies that interact with each other in ways that maybe we haven't experienced in the past. So I think it is good to look at having somebody with the appropriate technology experience who can see the big picture when a new aircraft with new technology comes in, how the pieces fit together, and where we can look for risks that may not be apparent otherwise.
So you're fully committed to the integrated project team and getting them on board and their oversight in the certification process?
I think further integration in the certification process between groups, including technology, is a key reform from AXA, and we will certainly implement that and look for ways to even go beyond that.
What else do we need to do here on Capitol Hill? You mentioned a bench. I would just call it a resilient workforce. How do we communicate to people what the workforce needs of the FAA are so that we can build this? I think it's one of your key priorities. You mentioned it in your statement, but we're like every other workforce in the nation. We need the right people and we need them now. So what can we do to better enable this FAA workforce?
I think assessing the workforce will be one of the first goals that I have within the agency, and I would look forward to finding ways that we can increase ways to bring people into the agency. I think it's a tight workforce right now in aerospace, and we recruit in the same places that private industry does, and we've got to figure out a way to be competitive to bring the right talent into the agency.
Will you work with us on the ability of the FAA to communicate these outcomes? I think we get in this role between the legislative branch and the agency, and we've had to push for a lot of discussions so that people understand impacts. And so I hope you will commit to being a frequent communicator. I think my former colleague, Senator Whitaker, had his levels of frustration many times before the committee in cooperation with the FAA on information. And what we need is we're the authorizers, but we're not the appropriators. And what needs to be clear to the appropriators is what a shortfall in impact at the FAA will mean for us to do any aspect of the job at the FAA. So if you'll commit to that.
I will. I think communicating better with stakeholders all around will be an important priority as well.
Thank you.